The city of Seattle was quiet. It was very late. Most people were asleep in their beds. The usual hum of traffic had faded. Only a few cars whispered past on distant roads. The Space Needle stood like a silent watcher. It pierced the dark, cloudy sky. Rain had fallen earlier. The streets glistened under the dim, orange glow of the streetlights. Puddles reflected the hazy lights like dark mirrors. It was a night for staying inside. A night for warm drinks and closed curtains. The air was cool and damp. A thick mist rolled in from Puget Sound. It swirled around the bases of tall buildings. It made familiar landmarks seem strange and ghostly. The usual sounds of the city were muffled. Even the distant foghorn seemed to come from another world. I felt a strange sense of isolation. It was just me and the sleeping city. This kind of quiet could be peaceful, but tonight, it felt different. It felt heavy, like the air before a storm. Shadows stretched long and deep in every doorway. Alleys looked like black mouths ready to swallow anyone who dared to look. The city lights tried to push back the darkness, but the darkness was strong. It clung to the corners. It hid in the spaces between things. I pulled my jacket tighter around me. I told myself it was just the chill in the air, but a small part of me knew better. There was something else, something unsettling lurking just out of sight. This was Seattle, a city of contrasts, bright tech companies by day, deep old shadows by night. It had its own secrets, its own hidden stories. Tonight the veil between worlds felt thin, the kind of night where anything could happen, the kind of night where the ordinary could become terrifying. I should have turned back then, I should have gone home, but something pushed me forward, a need to walk, a need to feel the city when it was raw and empty. I started my walk down Fifth Avenue. The street was mostly deserted. Shops were closed, their windows dark. Office buildings stood like empty shells. My footsteps were the loudest sound. They echoed strangely in the quiet. Clack, clack, clack. Each step seemed to announce my presence to the empty street. I felt very small, very alone in the vastness of the sleeping city. The mist swirled around my ankles. It made me feel like I was wading through a ghostly river. At first, the solitude was comforting. I often enjoyed these late-night walks. It was a time to think, a time to clear my head. The city felt different at this hour, more honest somehow. Without the daytime crowds, its true face showed. The old brick buildings seemed to whisper stories, stories of the past, stories of people who had walked these same streets long ago. I breathed in the cool, damp air. It smelled of wet concrete and the distant sea. But then, a subtle shift occurred. A prickle on the back of my neck, the feeling of being watched. I glanced over my shoulder. There was no one there, just the empty street stretching behind me, just the mist and the dim lights. I told myself it was my imagination. The late hour, the eerie quiet. It was easy to feel spooked in such an atmosphere, yet the feeling lingered. A tiny knot of unease began to form in my stomach. I tried to shake it off. I focused on the rhythm of my walking. I looked up at the tall buildings. Their windows were like dark eyes staring down. The city was no longer a comforting presence. It felt like a silent observer. Its gaze was cold and indifferent. The silence was no longer peaceful. It was charged. It was waiting. I quickened my pace just a little. The sound of my footsteps seemed to grow louder, more urgent. As I approached a cross street, I saw him. A figure, standing at the far end of the block. He was under a flickering streetlight. The light cast strange shadows. It made it hard to see him clearly. At first I thought it was just another late-night wanderer. Maybe someone waiting for a bus that would never come. Or someone simply lost in thought. Like me. Seattle had its share of people out at all hours. It was not entirely unusual. I did not pay much attention initially. I kept walking. My eyes were mostly on the slick pavement. I did not want to slip. But something made me look up again. The figure had not moved. He was still standing there, perfectly still. There was something odd about his posture. Even from a distance, he seemed too tall, too thin, like a silhouette cut from black paper. A strange, unnatural stillness, a flicker of curiosity mixed with my unease. Who would be standing so still, so late, in such a place? Most people out at this hour were moving with purpose, going somewhere or trying to find shelter from the cold. This person was just there, a dark shape against the hazy light. I squinted, trying to make out details, but the distance and the poor lighting made it difficult. He was just a form, a presence. My steps faltered for a moment. Should I cross the street now? Avoid him altogether? It seemed like an overreaction. He was just a person, probably harmless. I told myself not to be paranoid. This was a city, after all. People were allowed to stand on street corners, but the knot in my stomach tightened. My earlier sense of being watched returned, stronger this time. I had a bad feeling, a very bad feeling. As I got closer, I saw him more clearly, and what I saw made my breath catch. He was tall, impossibly tall and gaunt. He wore dark, ill-fitting clothes. They seemed to hang off his skeletal frame, but it was not his height or his thinness that was so alarming. It was what he was doing. He was dancing, or something that looked like dancing. It was a bizarre, jerky waltz, slow and exaggerated, like a puppet with tangled strings. His arms moved in wide, unnatural arcs. His legs bent at strange angles. He swayed from side to side. It was not a dance of joy. It was not a dance of rhythm. It was something else entirely, something grotesque, something deeply unsettling. He danced without music. Only the faint hum of the city and my own rapidly beating heart provided a soundtrack. The movements were fluid yet broken, graceful yet horrifyingly wrong. He seemed completely absorbed in his strange performance, unaware of my approach, or perhaps he was very aware. His head was tilted slightly, as if listening to a tune only he could hear. A tune from some dark, forgotten place. The flickering streetlight cast dancing shadows around him. It made his movements seem even more erratic, even more disturbing. I wanted to turn and run, but my feet felt rooted to the spot. I had never seen anything like it. It was not human, not entirely. The way he moved defied normal body mechanics. It was like watching a film played in reverse, or a creature trying to mimic human behavior but getting it terribly wrong. Each step of his silent waltz sent a fresh wave of coldness through me. This was not just a strange person. This was something else, something dangerous, something I did not understand. Section 5, The Unwavering Grin, A Mask of Malice. Then I saw his face, or rather his smile. As he turned slightly in his strange dance, his face came into the light, and he was smiling. It was the widest, most unnatural smile I had ever seen. It stretched his mouth too far. His lips were pulled back from his teeth. It was not a smile of happiness. It was not a smile of greeting. It was a predatory grin, a fixed, painted-on rictus of pure, unadulterated malice. His eyes, I could not see them clearly at first. They were lost in the shadows of his brow. But as he swayed closer to the edge of the streetlight's glow, I caught a glimpse. They were wide, staring, and they seemed to be fixed directly on me. Even as his body moved in that strange waltzing rhythm, his gaze did not waver. It was intense, penetrating, like he could see right through me, see the fear that was now gripping me like an icy hand. The smile never faltered. It remained plastered on his face, unchanging, unblinking. It was a mask, a terrifying mask that hid whatever was truly behind it, or perhaps it revealed its true nature. The contrast between the joyful act of dancing and that horrifying grin was sickening. It made my stomach churn. He continued his silent, jerky performance. Each movement seemed to emphasize the terrible, silent laughter of that smile. There was no sound from him, no breath, no rustle of clothing, just the sight of him, the unnatural dance, the awful smile, the unwavering stare. It felt like a nightmare come to life, a scene from a horror movie. But this was real. This was happening, on a quiet Seattle street, in the dead of night. And I was the only audience for this terrifying, silent show. My mind screamed at me to move, to do something, anything. Section 6. The Silent Approach, A Growing Dread. I tried to act normal. I tried to pretend I had not seen him, or that I was not utterly terrified. I kept walking. My pace was a little faster now. I hoped he would just stay there, lost in his own bizarre world. I hoped he would let me pass, let me escape this waking nightmare. I fixed my eyes on the end of the block. on the promise of a busier street, on the hope of safety, but I could feel his presence, burning into my side. He did not stay still. As I drew almost parallel to him on the opposite side of his little patch of light, he changed his dance. He began to move, not directly towards me, not at first, but he started to drift, sideways, still performing his grotesque waltz, his head still tilted, his smile still fixed. He was moving in my general direction, closing the distance between us, slowly, deliberately. Like a spider sensing a fly in its web, my heart hammered against my ribs. It felt like it would burst. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but I was frozen, caught between the desire to flee and the fear of provoking him. What would happen if I ran? Would he chase me? The thought was terrifying. He was still dancing, that awful, silent, jerky dance. But now there was a clear direction to it. He was moving towards my path, intending to intercept me. The silence was the worst part. No words, no threats, just that relentless, smiling approach. His movements were still slow, exaggerated, but they covered ground. He was getting closer, too close. The air around him seemed to grow colder, the faint city hum seemed to recede. All I could focus on was him, the smiling man, the dancer in the dark, and the growing certainty that he meant me harm. This was not random, this was intentional. Section 7. Crossing Paths, Crossing Terror, the man on the other side. I made a decision, a split-second choice. I could not let him get any closer. I could not let him block my path. There was a crosswalk just ahead. If I hurried, I could cross the street, put more distance between us, get away from him. It seemed like the only option, so I quickened my pace, almost a jog. I reached the curb. I glanced quickly for cars. The street was empty. I stepped off the curb and started to cross. For a moment, a tiny spark of relief. I was moving away from him. He was still on the other side, still dancing, still smiling. But there was space between us now, the width of the street. Maybe he would just let me go, maybe he would lose interest, maybe this whole horrifying encounter would end. I reached the midway point of the street. I risked a glance back. My blood ran cold, my relief shattered into a million pieces of pure terror. He had crossed the street too. He was on my side now, and he was still coming. He had not stopped his terrible dance. He had not broken his horrifying smile. He simply tilted his body, and with a few of those long, jerky strides, he was on the same sidewalk, behind me, and he was closer than before, much closer. The distance I had tried to create had vanished. He had followed me, effortlessly, silently. The realization hit me like a physical blow. He was hunting me. This was a game to him. A terrifying, sadistic game, and I was his prey. There was no ignoring him now, no pretending this was not happening. He was real. He was here, and he was after me. The last vestiges of my composure crumbled. Raw, primal fear took over. The kind of fear that bypasses thought and goes straight to action. My legs felt like lead, but I knew I had to move. Section 8. The sprint for survival, flight into the night. I ran. I did not think. I just ran. My feet pounded on the pavement. The sound echoed in the empty street. It was a frantic, desperate sound. The sound of pure terror. I did not dare to look back. Not at first. I just focused on putting as much distance between myself and that smiling man as possible. My lungs burned. My legs ached. But the adrenaline surged through me. Fear gave me speed I did not know I possessed. Streetlights blurred past. Dark alleys seemed to reach out like grasping hands. I ran blindly, not caring where I was going, only caring about getting away from him, away from that smile, away from that dance. I could hear my own ragged breathing, my own thudding footsteps. Were there other footsteps behind me? I could not tell. The sound of my own panic was too loud in my ears. Then I risked it, a quick glance over my shoulder. My heart leaped into my throat. He was there. He was following me. And he was no longer dancing. He was moving with an uncanny, gliding speed. His long legs covered the ground with terrifying efficiency. His smile was still fixed. Wider now, if that was even possible. He was gaining on me. The sight spurred me to run even faster. Tears streamed down my face, mixed with sweat and the cold night air. I ran until I thought my lungs would burst, until my legs would give out. I saw a brighter street ahead, more lights, the distant sound of a car. Hope flickered. I pushed myself harder. Reaching that street felt like reaching a lifeline. I burst onto the slightly busier road. I did not stop running. I ran until I reached my apartment building, fumbled with my keys, slammed the door shut, bolted it, and then I collapsed. Safe, but forever changed. I never saw the smiling man again. Section 9, Echoes in the Night, the legend lives on. I sat there shaking for a long time. The image of the smiling man was burned into my mind. His unnatural dance, his terrifying grin, the way he followed me, silently, relentlessly. Who was he? What was he? Was he even human? These questions circled in my head. I knew I would never have answers. He was an enigma, a dark spot in the fabric of the night, a memory that would haunt my walks for years to come. Later, much later, I found stories online, stories from other cities, other people. They described similar encounters. A tall, gaunt man, an unnatural dance, a wide, terrifying smile. They called him the Smiling Man, an urban legend. Reading those stories sent a fresh chill down my spine. Was what I saw just a product of my fear? Or had I truly encountered something that others had seen? Something that stalked the lonely streets at night? Urban legends are like that. They tap into our deepest fears. The fear of the unknown, the fear of the dark, the fear of someone who looks human but is not quite right. These stories spread, from person to person. Now, through the internet, they travel even faster. They mutate, they adapt to new cities, new anxieties. But the core of the fear remains the same, the fear of a predator in the urban jungle, a place where we should feel safe. The smiling man could be anyone, or anything. A figment of collective imagination, a real person with sinister intent, or something in between. That ambiguity is what makes such legends so powerful. They linger in the back of our minds. They make us look twice at shadows. They make us hurry home when the streets grow too quiet. The city of Seattle still sleeps. But now, I know that sometimes in the deepest part of the night, something else might be awake and smiling.